Alrighty then. So like I said, this tier list is going to be covering every role. It's just going to be every god in the game. I'm going to be talking about, at least from my perspective as a solo laner, and what I've like learned from other people and just watching like SPL, being a high ranked player and everything like that. So this is going to be mainly for ranked with influence from competitive, because I think if it was just competitive, there's a lot of characters that you don't see that often in competitive, but you do see in ranked because they are pretty good at pub stomping, and even in casuals. So I'd say it's a little bit in between. It's going to have competitive influence, but it's also going to have ranked influence. And if there's a character that's like really good in ranked but not really played at all in SPL, then I'm gonna put him somewhere in the middle just to be fair, because I think that's probably where they deserve to be. For example, like I think Achilles is pretty bad in SPL, whereas I think he is pretty good in ranked. So I would say that he's probably like S plus in ranked, but in SPL I'd say he's probably just like A. So I'd probably put him somewhere like A plus or S minus, if that makes sense. And I guess we'll start out with Achilles since that is the first character, but that was probably one of the best examples as well. So I'll put Achilles in A+. I don't think he's very good in solo. He's lost a lot of his pressure. Pressure guards aren't even that great right now. The only time I think Achilles is really good is when you can really play off your pressure. You have some really high pressure jungle as well, and you just kind of invade on cooldown. But he is really good in jungle in ranked. I think he can snowball super easily in ranked, so I'm going to put him in A+. And his late game is pretty bad. But one thing he does have going for him is his execute. So if you just execute tanks, it's really simple. So Agni, I'm going to put in A+ as well. In competitive, he doesn't see a crazy amount of play. I'm not too sure why. I do think he's really good in ranked, especially with the band cross rush like Paul does. On Agni, if you get a red buff band cross, you can literally solo their mage with your bombs from a really safe distance. I guess he just doesn't have that great of matchups. He doesn't really get pressure early on, at least in competitive side of things, on the competitive side of things. And he isn't as safe as something like, I'd say, like Thoth or something. He can't make exactly the same amount of plays that Thoth can. But I still think he's probably around A+. I'm using Cobb. I think Muzen Cab is pretty underrated, actually. And I'd probably have him in A or A+, maybe even going towards S-. So I'm going to put him in A+. Notice that every god is an A+ right now, and they all start with A. But I'll put Muzen Cab in A+ because I think he's pretty underrated right now. The ability-based build with Crusher and Mage's Blessing on Muzen Cab is actually really sick. Soul Eater even. He's really good at defending. It's very hard to siege on Muzen Cab because he can just clear the wave super easily. And then he also is really good at killing tanks because of his cripple. And he's a lot safer than people imagine. Like, they nerfed him before, but they just buffed him again. They reverted the nerf to him where they reduced the movement speed he gets from his hives, and they reverted that, so now he's going to have that back. So he's going to be pretty safe like he once was. He's just super fast, super hard to kill. And if you go Teleria boots on him, you're never really catching him. Puch, I'm going to put in A. I think maybe even A-. He recently got some buffs. He's very situational character. I'll put him in A- actually. He's very situational. He has some matchups where he just destroys, like against Aphrodite. Aphrodite's kind of a meta pick right now, or at least it was. And Opwash is a really good pick into that because her heal is a tick, and she has to use it to clear the wave for one, but also she has to use it to sustain because she's going to get poked pretty often as an Afro. And Opwash just kind of destroys her in that matchup. He destroys pretty much all healers, Sylvanas. Not so great into Chang'e because Chang'e can immune a lot of it. But still good into healers, so he's a situational character that has some pretty good matchups. I'm going to put Amma in A. Amma's one of those characters that is pretty good late game. Her early game suffers a little bit. Sometimes she can get camped and get killed pretty easily. Her dash can be interrupted. Some of her matchups in lane aren't the greatest. And also, since she brings low pressure early on, you usually just want to play a character that's better late game that has just as bad early pressure. That's the same problem with like Nike and everything like that. Nike can't really trade early on, doesn't have the pressure, so why not pick a character that's a little bit better than her in late game if you're playing a character that wants to get to late game. On her, I'm going to put an A-. Anhur is a sick 1v1er. He does a lot of damage, and he's one of these characters that most people are comfortable on, so people will always pick him. The only problem with him is his jump is super slow, and he just gets farmed super easily. I'm going to put Anubis in C. Anubis is just not good. Way too easy to kill. Gets countered too hard by anti-heal. You want to go lifesteal on him because it just fits so well with his passive, but if they have anti-heal, you're just no longer really healing at all. And that's all of your safety. All of the safety comes from your healing from lifesteal, and it just gets negated by anti-heal, and he's just so easy to kill since he has no mobility, so he's just going to be in C. Kuang is kind of weird. I'd probably put Kwang an A-. I think he's good in ranked for sure. I think the problem with Kwang is that his early clear isn't that great, and it takes a while for him to ramp up. And you know, why would I play Kwang when I can play a Blink jungler who does 1 billion damage at level 3? You know, Kwang doesn't really have that threatening potential. I don't think, and he just has really bad matchups, right? I think he kind of just gets owned by Serket, he gets owned by Camazotz, even though Camazotz isn't really that meta right now. Just all these junglers, especially Crusher. Crusher really destroys him because he can't really dash away from people because it'll just catch it. I'm gonna put Aphro in A+, maybe even S-. I think A+ is a good spot though because a lot of people in rank do not know how to play her so that she doesn't get too far behind, because you can get super far behind and eventually just lose the game because they have all the pressure in the world against you as an Aphrodite. But if you do know how to play it right, then it is a very good late game pick, and you're going to be healing for a ton, and it's going to make it really hard for their carries or their like jungler and stuff to dive your backline, because you can just always link them and just keep them safe. So I'd put Aphro in A+. Pretty good in the healer meta for sure. Can't really get punished in solo, but she's not very good in any other role, so that's why I'd only put her in A+. Apollo I'll probably put in A. I think he's a little bit better than Anhur. He did just get buffed, so I think that'll help him a little bit. I think he can match like Chernabog rotations. You might see Apollo be picked into like Chernabog so that he can ult over and follow the Chernabog, which is a good, I think, cool little matchup. I don't know really how valuable that is, but I do think he's an A after his buffs. Should help him a little bit. Arachne I'm going to put in C. I think Arachne's just too bad. I think her 2 is probably one of the worst abilities in the game. All of her damage is single target, which, you know, isn't that big of a deal, but she is still pretty easy to kill. And she has to get so close to people to even do things in team fights. And, you know, her ult, although it is a very good escape, that's the only thing it's good for. You don't want to initiate with it. You want to have to go blink with her, which is fine because most junglers want to go blink, but she just doesn't bring it much of anything, especially since all of her CC is single target. I'd rather just have a Nemesis. If you want to play a character that goes on one person and it's hard to kill, just play Nemesis. Ares, I'll probably throw in B. He's a situational character, obviously very good into cripples and a lot of movement. He just kind of gets owned in lane, I think, and his pressure isn't that great. Very easy to kill, very easy to target out when he blink ults or uses ult. For example, like if you want to play a character that blink ults, why not play like Sylvanas or Geb, who can immediately use other abilities after, whereas Ares has to blink ult and sit in the ult for like 2 or 3 seconds, right? Just sit there and wait for it to pull. If they just beads it and go on you, you're very easy to kill. So just too easy to kill and doesn't bring enough pressure, although it does have some good counters. Artemis I'm going to put in S, maybe even teetering towards S+. I think Artemis is ridiculous. She's so good at killing tanks. She can keep them CC'd forever. That's usually the target you're going on as an ADC or a mage, is their tanks. Yeah, this is the full tier list Stern Diesel. This is not just Ed Collis. Yeah, no inbound. This is the full tier list though. So Artemis, I think she's just really good at tanks, and that's who you're going to be hitting anyway. Not only that, but her RNG is ridiculous. She can easily outtrade people just because she gets random crits. Her boar body blocks so easily, so you can easily 1v1 in lane. She has good clear, good poke. She has a lot going for her. The only thing that she had in the past that was wrong with her was that she is really easy to kill and immobile. However, her ult, plus the CC immunity on her ult, plus the movement she gets from her 2, the slow on her 3, the traps, if you're really good at using your traps, she's still super safe. And a lot of times in dual lane, you're sticking together with your support, so that helps a lot. If you're 2v2ing all the time, then your support can help you a lot, especially when you get ganked. I'm going to put Artio in A. She's one of those Guardians in solo that gets pressure and is really good early on. Her late game falls off a bit. However, I do think you can snowball with her pretty well. She has a lot of good matchups. However, I think she falls off to a point where it may not even be worth picking her most of the time unless you can snowball the game. If you're really comfortable on Artio, then definitely play her in ranked, and I think she'd probably be around A for sure. Athena, I'm going to put an S-. I think Athena is probably one of the better supports right now. Her taunt is still one of the best CCs in the game. The global pressure she brings from solo and support is just insane. It's so hard to make plays when there's an Athena on the map and she has her ult. It can instantly be a power play for one team. So I'm going to put Athena in S-. And also, the characters that I'm putting up here, apart from like the ADCs that are really good or certain characters that are really good, usually can be flexed into multiple roles, which is super important. I think it really ups their value. Yeah, this is Lootwick. It's going to be on YouTube. I'm going to throw Awilix down in A-. She's kind of just a gimmicky character. You can snowball really well with her. Her 2 doesn't do nearly as much damage as it used to. They nerfed it a while back, and it's just, you kind of felt it ever since. all of our CC is basically single target unless you get, like, somehow hit a multiple 3, or you pretty often hit a multiple man root cripple, but it's just not the same as like confirmed CC on other characters. Gets countered by Magi's pretty hard, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're good at Awilix, though, I think you definitely play her and see positive results with her. Bacchus, I'm going to throw down in B with Ares. Doesn't have a lot of great matchups. Doesn't really get pressure, I don't think. Also super easy to kill. His main CC in his knockup is his escape, so he's just way easy, too easy to kill once he uses that. A lot of these characters have CC apart from their escape, or have CC and no escape, like a Sylvanas has multiple forms of CC but no escape, but at least he, that's his identity, whereas like Bacchus' identity is the flop, and that's also his escape, so he's just super easy to kill. Bad matchups, gets silenced out of his clear and stuff. Bakasura, throw down into B. Reason I have him in B and not lower is because I do think he's viable in jungle. I don't think he's very good at all in solo lane. You can build Bruiser with him in solo. That's something I've messed around with. However, you really just want to be a hyper carry as Bakasura if you want to do anything. And you can only really do that from jungle. And you can do that from jungle. He does have a really, really good farm path and, I guess, like opportunity, because he's so fast and he just clears things super easily, especially if you max your jump, which is interesting. The problem with that is you're focusing a whole lot on farm and not as much like ganking and stuff, and you need your items to be online to actually do things as Bakasura. So if you can get out of that early game and farm up those items, you definitely can solo carry game. I'll probably put Bastet in A-. I think Bastet's pretty good, actually. However, she just brings no CC, so she doesn't offer the same things that other junglers do. Obviously a little bit better than Bakasura, but I don't think she's going to be up in these areas where the better junglers will be. I do think most junglers are viable right now. They all have their weaknesses, but also have their strengths. However, the safest ones are the ones that their strengths are, I guess, more consistent throughout each game. They actually are able to use their strengths more often, right? So we'll have Bastet in A-. I do think she does so much damage, and that's one of her strengths, right? Apart from, she doesn't have CC, but she does a million damage to make up for it, kind of like Camazotz. So yeah. Bellona, I'm going to throw down in either A or A-, maybe even A-. I think that she's okay in solo. If you like playing her, you definitely can get away with playing her in solo and do well. Especially with the build where you go like Shoguns and stuff, you can 1v1 ADCs really easily. The build that I made for her. However, she just doesn't bring as much as other solo laners late game. Her main form of CC is her ult, which is on a long cooldown. Why am I going to play Bellona when her main form of CC is her ult and it takes forever to come back up, when I can play like Sobek, for example, who counters Bellona in lane and can pluck on a like 7-second cooldown or 8-second cooldown. It's just ridiculous. Stuff like that. It's just stuff you have to think about, like, why am I playing these characters when I can play these characters that can get to late game? And Bellona does out clear really hard, so if you are able to snowball, so you have a high pressure jungler and you're playing on somebody who's not very good and doesn't know how to play without pressure, you definitely can easily snowball the game with Bellona, since she still has the best clear level 1 in solo lane. Maybe you can snowball by like invading blue or something like that, but yeah. Go cool down Bellona then. Good point. So Cabrakhan's up next. I'm going to throw Cabrakhan down in B. I think he's a flex pick. I think you can play him in jungle, solo, and even support. However, I just don't think he brings all that much. I don't think he's very good in solo. He has no sustain. He actually kind of gets countered by some matchups, like even like Sobek and stuff. Can really mess with them. And yeah, he just doesn't bring all that much. So even though he is a flex pick, and I do think he is definitely viable, and if you like him, you can play him. I just think he'll probably be in B. I'm going to throw Camazotz down in A. I think Camazotz is a little underrated right now. He did get nerfs to his damage and stuff, but he still has a crazy amount of damage. Still super safe pick, really good with Blink. You can get out of diving a backline super easily with your ult, such as like a Daji. And your sustain is still really, really good. So gank potential is still there as well. Next up is Cerberus. Cerberus is another one of those flex picks that I think is really good. I'm going to put him in A+. You can play him in support and solo. He's one of those Bruiser Guardians that gets pressure in both lanes because his clear is crazy and his damage is crazy because he just has really inflated damage numbers. You might even see him in S-. However, I don't value him as much as other people do in solo. I don't think he's that great in solo. I do think he's good and he wins lane and he can stalemate against warriors easily. And easily kill people with his ult and stuff like that under tower. However, I do think he falls off a little bit, and his main form of CC, apart from his ult, which is a good ult and definitely can burn beads and stuff with, is his stun, which is a little bit difficult to hit on characters that are looking out for it. Cernunnos, I'm going to throw down an A-. I think Cernunnos is a little underrated. I've been talking to people and they say that they think he's like really bad. So he could even be, but I think he's a little bit underrated for what it's worth. I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal opinion. Whenever I play this character, I feel like he does a whole lot. Like he has a whole lot of options with his 1. His 2 is like a good form of clearing CC. He has a good combo with his 2 root into dash CC, and his ult's still going to be good. But he is just super easy to kill, and I can see why people like throw him in B, because he's just one of those hunters. Like, why play a hunter that can be killed so easily when you can play a hunter that can't be killed easily and still do a lot of damage? But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that he's a little underrated and put him in A minus. So Chaac, I'm gonna throw down probably even B, but maybe even A minus. I'll put him in B for now. Chaac is a very situational pick and very I would say situational pick, but he has some matchups that you actually want to pick him into. Like, I picked him the other day in a matchup where I know they were going to try and kill me a whole lot, and he has a long CC immunity duration on his ult, so that's what helps him against like picks that like want to kill him really easily, especially in forms of CC like Artemis and stuff. However, he's still easy to kill after the fact. He doesn't really do anything in late game team fights. He still is a lane bully slash a lane like neutralizer, I guess you could say, because he can kind of stalemate lanes against lane bullies, and he can sustain up and make sure that he fights early and in the lane when there's like a 2v2 or whatever. However, it's just that late game that's just not that great. But you can pick him into comps that really just want to kill tanks, and I think you'll be set. Chang'e I'm going to put an S. Chang'e is ridiculous in solo right now. Her late game team fights are insane, one of the best in all of the game, especially coming from solo. She can't get bullied out. She can buy her items from lane, which is actually a pretty big deal. She can always stay in lane and keep up the pressure that she gains. She can heal waves with her, obviously with her 3. You can max her 1 into her 3, heal waves, make it really rough for the enemy solo to actually clear the wave. You can poke them because most characters have to walk up to the wave to do damage to the wave. So you hit them and the wave, and it's just crazy poke potential. You'll always have pressure with her. You'll always be healthy. It's very hard to kill because of her immunity on her 2. Low cooldown, so you're going to be doing a lot of damage as a bruiser mage. And then also that healing is also going to come into be a factor. People like to think that Chang'e heals aren't that great, but in reality, with Rod Asclepius and low CDR, you're going to be healing for quite a lot. So Chang'e is just one of those characters that is uncontestably one of the best characters in the game right now, in my opinion, in solo lane. Chernabog, I think I'm actually going to throw in S+. One of the few characters that I think you can't really let through. I think if Chernabog is on one team, he will easily win the game for that team. His ult is so bloated; it has way too many benefits for it. His ult also is just the global on it is just so much threat and potential to have power plays across the map. So it's really hard. It's really hard to fight into any team that has a Chernabog because he can just instantly be there. And not only that, it's a global vision proc. It also slows everyone. So if there is a fight going on and he doesn't even come over to it, he's still affecting that fight. His 1v1 is really good. He's so safe because he has damage immunity and CC immunity on his 3. So no other character besides the characters with immunity like Chang'e 2 or Robin 2 get damage immunity, complete damage immunity while they're using the ability, right? So when he's in a wall and say he has Zeus charges on him, if that Zeus detonates, it will do no damage to him. If his Raquette ults him, or if any dot gets on him and he goes into a wall, that damage he literally will just be immune to that damage. So there's very, very few abilities like that in the game. And I don't even know why it's programmed like that. I think dots should still do damage to him in the wall. Like, he should just not be able to be targetable, like a Nazos Sash. Like, Nazos Sash, if you sash a Kraken... no, thank you. If you sash a Kraken, the Kraken won't do damage to you. But if at the same time you had a dot on you, that dot will still do damage to you. However, if you get Krakened while you're in a wall as Chernabog, but also have a Circuit ult on you, both of those will do no damage to you. You'll negate both of them. So, yeah, it's just ridiculous. Ridiculous safety, and... I think probably the best god in the game right now, apart from the new god, Perrin Samedi. Chiron, I'm going to throw down in A-. I think he has some picks where you want to cleanse certain abilities like Athena Taunt. He's really good for that, and he also gives you a little bit of CC immunity now. It's not just a cleanse. So that's cool. He's really good at ulting to help dive the backline while stay safe. If he ults and like throws long distance shots similar to a Rama, then he's really safe in that regard and can kind of get his damage off. He also has a decent, like his heals are still decent, but he's just not. He's very easy to kill, and he's not really a hyper carry. His autos aren't that great when it comes to late game. Chronos, I'm going to throw down in either B or A minus. I'm not too sure about Chronos. I think it's just because he doesn't have really major AoE abilities. He can't really single-handedly win a team fight like a Thoth or a Janus by just like using abilities over the wall. Like these characters can use abilities over the wall and instantly win a team fight, whereas Chronos really can't. He's still, I think, pretty safe, and getting his ult off can kind of change a team fight. However, I don't know exactly what's wrong with him, apart from the fact that he just doesn't bring as much as the other mages and isn't really an AoE mage. I do think he's viable in solo, though, so maybe B, maybe even A minus, maybe a little bit underrated. Chulainn, I'll throw in A. Chulainn has seen some nerfs. Pressure warriors aren't that relevant right now. I mean, they're still good, but they're not the end-all, be-all. And since he's seen his nerfs, he hasn't gained as much pressure as he once did, especially because he doesn't get physical power for his transformation. Well, he doesn't. He still gets physical power for his transformation, but he just doesn't get as much. So he just doesn't get the pressure he once did. However, he still is a lane bully, and he can still change team fights with transformations and get a lot of damage off in that time. So I still think he's A, and I still think he's probably one of the better team fight warriors and lane bullies. Cupid, I'm going to just put in B. Cupid's similar to Chiron. He has his utility with his heal. He has his utility with his ult and being able to force beads and stuff like that. However, that's all he's really good for. He's still really easy to kill. His heart bomb is just so inconsistent damage. You don't really want to use it, or you don't really want to pick the character just for the damage on his one. On his heart bomb, since it's so inconsistent. And not only that, he just doesn't bring the same hyper carry potential that the other ADCs do. Dodgy, I'm going to throw an A minus. I think she's a little bit underrated. I think going Blink on her is really good. You can get free kills early game, especially in ranked. Very still, I think, pub stomping god in ranked and casuals. Her ult is still very valuable. The ults of these junglers, where you just are in the air for so long and you actually can blink out of danger afterwards. So like Dodgy, you're up in the air for what is it, like 8 seconds? You can force beads, pull people to you, and then afterwards jump and then blink away. It's just crazy safety. So. So yeah, Discordia's up next. I'm going to put Discordia in A+. Discordia is one of those low-pressure mages, at least early on. She doesn't really bring the clear or the early fight potential in mid. However, she helps one lane with her passive, which is actually a big deal. Discordia passive gives physical power to whoever is doing the most damage. So, for example, say I pick Hercules and I have a Discordia mid. I am going to be doing a crazy amount of damage because I'm going to have top damage and I'm going to have extra physical power, not only from my passive, but also from Discordia. So she helps in that regard, so she has some utility there. But she also is one of the better late game mages for sure. She's very hard to siege into, for one. And, you know, she just does crazy amount of damage and has a lot of good CC come late game. So, but the problem is a little bit of the problem about her is her early game. However, if you're playing with somebody that can make use of her passive, then that's really good. Yo, Reverend God, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub, man. Much appreciated, dude. Welcome, man. Erling Shen, I'm going to put in A because I think that he's actually decent in solo. Like I said, pressure warriors just aren't all that great right now. So that's part of the reason that he's not going to see that too much play in solo. However, he is a good flex pick. I think he's good in jungle. He has a really good combo that just one-shots with Crusher and boots and like stone cutting and stuff like that. Just kind of like a hybrid build of auto attack and ability base. He does a lot of damage with that. And if you blink in auto, knock up, 2 auto, just like throw in some autos in between your knock up and your 2 and your 1, you'll actually just one-shot some mages. So they'll have to use their actives on it. He also has really good initiation with the Blinkle. Fafnir, I'm going to put in probably A or A minus. Fafnir's dropped off a lot. Not too sure why. I think it's because of his early game. His 2v2 early on in duo is just not that great. He doesn't really clear the wave that well. He doesn't really fight that well. And I'm pretty sure that's mainly just it. I mean, most of these characters just have a lot of kill potential in duo and have a lot of pressure. Fenrir, I'm going to throw down an A minus. I think he is another flex spec. You can put him in jungle and solo. However, he's just not that great. A lot of his stuff is single target. His CC is not that reliable. If they go Magi's, you get countered pretty hard because then you can't really ult people with your ult. You can't really carry people with your ult and bring them to your backline. So especially if their front lane goes Magi's, then it's very difficult. Freya, I'm going to throw in C. Too easy to kill. The nerf to her passive lifesteal really fucked her, I think. She was already pretty bad early on. Doesn't bring pressure, which you want in duo. Doesn't have a lot of kill potential, which you want in duo. And obviously you don't want to play her in mid because she's just a free kill. So I think Freya's just really bad. I'll throw her down there. Ganesha, I'll put in A. Ganesha has his uses. He's really good at killing tanks because he keeps them in a single place for a long time and keeps them silent so they can't use their abilities. His ult's still really good. I think his ult's one of the better ults for a support if you use it correctly. He has some combos that are pretty sick. If you can keep them comboed in your ult, then it's gonna one-shot everyone. And yeah, I think especially for ranked, Ganesh is a support that you could easily get behind, just since he's so simple and you know, can just really easy to work around since he doesn't steal anybody's stacks or life or last hits or anything like that. So Geb, I'll probably put in A. He's one of those characters that's just really good with Blink Ult once you get to that part of the game. However, you have to get to that part of the game. He doesn't have a crazy amount of pressure or kill potential in duo, but he's one of those characters where it may be warranted to pick him for his later stages, even though his early stages aren't as good, if that makes sense, similar to Discordia and some other characters like that. There's some characters that are better late, but why pick them when they're early is so bad? But Geb's one of those exceptions where his later game is so good, combined with his shield, his blink ults, and stuff like that, his low cooldowns, that it may be warranted. So that's where I'll put a Geb. Guan Yu, I'm going to put in probably A. I'll throw him a little bit higher. I think he's a little bit better than these warriors in solo. I think he has some flex potential as far as support. I do think his best role is probably solo. I just don't enjoy him too much. I think there's better picks. I think he gets bullied by characters like Chang'e, for example. But Chang'e kind of bullies everybody. But I just mean, like, just pick a character that's a little bit better late game. Because I don't even think Guan's that great in the late game team fights. Like, he's definitely good, but I don't think it's like, if we just get to late game, we instantly win. It's not really like that. If you're playing Afro and you're saying, if we just get to late game, we instantly win, it's kind of true. So yeah, that's basically. I just don't think he's still good in lane and stuff like that, but his late game isn't that insane where you're like, oh, okay, I just need to get to late game with Guan. But he's definitely still a good pick and should be A+. Hachiman will probably throw A+ as well. Still really good character, super safe. Is able to get his damage off really easily. Can get random like artillery hits with his 1. Good at burning objectives because of the attack speed star on his 2 that he gives to himself and his team. And just a super safe pick and can't really go wrong with him. He's very good at most things. Also has a really good combo. His combo with because all of his abilities can instantly cancel into his auto attacks. And also into the other ability. So like you can 2 immediately 3 auto and then ult and like get so much burst damage off in a very short amount of time. So he's really good at 1v1ing in that aspect. Hades, I'm going to throw in D. And I'm also kind of not trolling. I think Hades is really just terrible. I don't think he... If you know how to... Okay. I won't put him in D. I'll put him in C. I just think he's so bad. Like, he is okay in lane. Like, I really do think Hades is okay in lane. He can 1v1. Obviously, his clear is super good and he can get pressure through that aspect. But it just doesn't amount to anything. Like, I'd just rather be another character that can clear really well. Like Bellona. Like, I'd rather just be Bellona and just one-shot the wave and have pressure like that and still be a little bit useful in teamfights and stuff like that. Hades is not really useful in teamfights at all, especially as a bruiser mage. If you build him full damage and try and one-shot somebody immediately, that's probably when you're most useful. But if you're building him or if you're playing him in solo and you're building a bruiser, then I think he's just trash. And then also I just think he's bad in mid because he has no long-range artillery like any of these other mages. I mean, just look, I haven't gone through most of the mages yet, but like Discordia, when we go towards Thoth and Janus and stuff like that, all these characters have long-range utility, and Hades doesn't at all. So I just don't really see the point of him. I think he's pretty bad. Hebo, since this does have influence from ranked, I'm going to put him in A-. I think in ranked, he's probably like an S-, but in competitive, I think he's probably like a B. Actually, we'll throw him in A. The reason for that is I think he's probably around S- in ranked, and in competitive I actually think he's probably around A- or A, just because he's played in jungle a lot, and a lot of EU junglers are playing him in jungle, and I think that that actually makes sense. His low cooldown 1, he has a lot of trade potential in jungle. He can easily 1v1 most of the junglers, I think, and he one-shots every camp, so... Especially with their build where they go like Warlock Sash and Bancross and stuff, a lot of survivability with that. So we'll put Hebo in A. Now into Hel. I'm going to throw Hel in A-. I think she's actually pretty decent in solo, especially with the healer meta. She can get bullied out by some characters, but if you can get to late game with her, similar to Aphrodite, if you get to late game with her and you aren't that far behind, you will instantly win the game if you use your heals correctly, because she heals for a shit ton. And even if you go like a bruiser build with Lotus Crown, Rod of Asclepius, and like defense items and stuff, you will still be healing for a whole lot. And if you have full CDR, all it takes is a couple rounds of your CDRs to instantly full heal your entire team. So I'll throw Hell NA. But like I said, she can get bullied out and easily killed by some picks. Hercules is up next. I'm going to throw Hercules in S-. I think he's probably the best warrior right now. If you are going to pick a warrior in solo, I think you should probably pick Hercules. Because he's really good in team fights. He is very good in lane. He's a lane bully. And his CC is just so good. It's like one of the better CCs out of all of the warriors, because it's a low cooldown. You can instantly put people out of place. You can take them from this side of the map to your side of the map and instantly kill that person. And he's just so tough to deal with, especially from ahead for a carry, because of his heal and the protection he gets from his 3 and the amount of damage he does because of his passive. The passive is probably one of the best parts of his kit for sure. Just the fact that he does so much damage with it. But everything combined just makes him probably the best warrior pick, in my opinion, especially if you're good at him. 75 free power, exactly. Who wouldn't want that? Hu Yi, I'll probably throw an A+. So Hu Yi is one of those characters where he can carry very easily. He's a very good hyper carry. He's super safe with his jump. He can instantly jump away from jungler. So if a jungler blinks on him, bam, he's already in the air. He is now not taking damage from that jungler, and he is safe for the time being. However, I think part of the reason that he's not the best is that he's kind of like slow. I think his abilities are like, I wouldn't say they're slow, but it's just like, for example, like with Hachiman. For Hu Yi, he has to mark somebody, he has to stun them, and then he can jump on them afterward and use his escape, which is fine. But it takes, all of that together takes about like 3 or 4 seconds, whereas Hachiman, he can immediately dash and then ult immediately after, and it only takes like 1 or 2 seconds. And then some other characters that I think are viable in ADC right now are similar to that. So his full combos are just a little bit slower. His ult is still really good for aerial denial. Is that it? Area of denial, I guess, whatever, something like that. And it's also really good for bending objectives. But yeah, so that's why we have Hu Yi in A+. Hunbats we're going to throw down in A-. I think Hunbats is pretty good. Jungler, like I said before, I think most junglers are pretty viable right now. It just depends on what you want to bring to your team fight, or what you really prefer, whether you prefer low or high pressure early or low pressure early. Hunbats is one of those characters that doesn't bring a lot of pressure early, but once he gets his ult, he has a lot of gank potential, and his team fight's still pretty good. However, his late game isn't that great to the point where it would warrant picking his bad early game, if that makes sense. Like with all these characters, we always talk about how bad is their early game, and is it so bad that you wouldn't even want to pick it for late game, or is it bad but their late game is so good that you would still want to pick it? With Hunbats, it's his early game is bad, his late game isn't amazing. It's good for sure, but it's just not that warranted, if that makes sense. Really hard for him to get his damage off. Isis, we'll throw in A-, maybe even B. I think Isis actually has some potential in solo. I think she's okay in mid. She gets pressure early and can snowball games, especially in ranked. If it was a SPL tier list, or at least like competitive tier list, I'd probably throw her down in B. But since it's taking both into account, I'll probably throw in A-. I do think she has some flex potential, and obviously can snowball really early with a Bancross build and her early clear potential in mid. Izanami we'll throw down in D. So the thing about Izanami is that her strength was supposed to be the fact that her autos are different, but that's actually her downfall. It just makes her so bad. She doesn't have the carry potential because of that aspect. The fact that her regular autos are they're just difficult, I think. For one, she's super easy to kill because her 3 is so telegraphed, and Crusher just kind of owns it. Her 2 is not that great of an ability. She already has a line. Well, her autos are already line, so why does she have a line ability that helps her clear? Her clear is obviously really good, and you're going to have the best clear at level 1, but I bet you could proxy at the Phoenix, get all their buffs at level 1 as Izanami, and still end up losing the game just because she's such a bad character. Her ult is okay. I think it's not that great, but it's also not that bad. But I think she's probably one of the worst characters in the game. That's why I'll have her in D for sure. Okay, we'll put her in C. She's not that bad, but she is very, very bad. Anyway, Janice will probably throw in S. Even after the nerfs, Janice is still one of the best characters in the game. Will always be one of the best characters in the game with his ult, his damage potential, the safety that he has, the utility that he brings for his team with the movement speed, the portals, everything like that, instantly being at team fights. Notice that the characters at the top are usually the characters that have globals and can instantly change games just based on the fact that they can be in two parts of the map at once. So Janice will have an S. Still one-shots everybody, still has like crazy ult. He has seen nerfs, but he still does a crazy amount of damage with his 2 and his full combo. So considering this is SPL and ranked tier list, I'll have Janice in S. If it was just ranked, I'd probably throw Janice down a little bit more because I do think that most ranked players do not know how to play Janice, but since this is taking competitive as well, I mean, if it was just competitive, I might even throw Janice in S+. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe not, but we'd have him in S for now. I think he's definitely one of the best characters in the game for sure. Jingwei's up next. I'll throw Jingwei in A. Jingwei is one of those characters that can carry a game. Definitely is good and has the crit on her too, which helps with the crit builds that people are going right now with the poison star and stuff. Still a super safe guard, super safe god. Still super hard to kill. Has a lot of good matchups. Like if they have it Sobek solo, you go Jingwei ADC, you're gonna be chilling. You can just always dash away from that pluck or the knock up. Same thing with Cerberus, dash away from his ult and stuff like that. She's super safe god. Problem with her is that her ability, like she doesn't have a lot of damage abilities, right? Most of her things are auto attacks. And her main damaging ability, which is her 1, is just super difficult to hit, and it's a small little circle. So you can use it off CC, and that's a good amount of damage, and it's a good knock-up. It's just that most of her, her abilities just don't really do damage, and she's mainly auto attacks. But still a super safe god, I think, and definitely has her picks in situations where she thrives. Kali, I'll probably throw down an A-. Like I said, most junglers I think are viable right now. Maybe she's actually B, because I think Baka might be better than Kali. Who knows? Maybe we should throw Baka in A- and have Kali down here. Yeah, let's just do that. Because I think Baka is a little bit better than Kali, because he actually can fight early. Well, not really fight early, but farm early a lot better than Kali, and is item dependent like Kali, but gets there a little bit quicker and doesn't fall behind as easily as Kali because he can actually roam the map really easily. So we'll have Baka in A- and Kali down in B. So yeah, Kali's just one of those characters that's obviously good in fights. Not amazing. Like people like to think that she's just insanely good in fights, but she's still super easy to target out and kill and win a team fight off of. And her early game just, I don't think, warrants the fact that you would pick her for a late game. It's just too difficult early on. However, there is the build where you go ability-based damage on Kali. Jesus, can I speak? Ability-based damage on Kali, and that's, I think, a viable build on her. But it's still, you want to build her auto attack for the late game. But anyway. Kepri's up next. We'll probably throw Kepri in A-. I think after the buffs, he's actually in a decent spot. Maybe we'll throw him in A, because I think he's on par probably with Geb. He does get pressure early on, at least I think. He has good early on lane clear, kill potential with his pull and his early damage. His team fight isn't that great, though. I mean, his ult is still, useful, but it's still not that great of an ult, if that makes sense. It's super easy to play around, especially in competitive. In ranked, I think it's actually probably a little bit better. It gains a little bit more value because people kind of just mindlessly go in for kills and stuff like that. So maybe getting a revive off can instantly win a team fight. Kukulkan will throw down in B. All of his damages are super hard to hit. Damage abilities are super hard to hit. Why play Kukulkan when you can play a character like Discordia, Thoth, Janus, anything like that, who can easily hit their abilities and still be super safe with escapes? Whereas Kukulkan doesn't have an escape apart from his 2 movement speed and slow immunity, but also just doesn't have the abilities that are easy to hit. However, his late game is pretty good because he can stop sieges really well with his tornado. He can easily clear waves from safe distance. However, it still comes down to the fact that he's easy to kill, doesn't have the escape, and if he doesn't hit his ult, he will be pretty useless in a team fight. Because even though I do think his 1 is actually, I guess it's an easy ability to hit. However, the fact that you have to get off multiple to be useful with it, and the fact that you're just getting gone on and being easily killed just makes it pretty rough for Kukulkan. So if you don't hit anybody with your ult in the start of a team fight, it's not that great. Kumba will throw in A+. I think Kumba is actually in a pretty good spot. I think he's actually a really good pick. He has a lot of kill potential in duo. He's really annoying in team fights, really good peel. Really good start to team fights with his ult, really good setup, everything. I mean, the 2-second root is really what it comes down to. The fact that he has a 2-second root is really sick, and it doesn't DR. Obviously, roots don't DR, so if you freeze somebody and then 2-second root them afterward, they're going to be sitting there for a long time. So that's why I have Kumba in A+, definitely a better pick right now. Kuzenbo will throw down to A-. I think the one role that you would want to see him played in is solo, and I do think he's viable in solo. I do think he's actually a decent pick there. Very, very annoying god. Very hard to deal with as an enemy carry, especially if from ahead. But if you're not ahead as a Kuzenbo, a lot of times they can just ignore you and just kill whoever else is diving the back line, or just try and focus out somebody else, because a lot of the damage as Kuzenbo is coming from your 2 and Thorns. However, after the buff with his reduced damage or reduced cooldown on his 3 and his 1, once he gets hit on during his 2, he does rely on his abilities a little bit more to do damage, so that helped him a little bit. However, I still think that he is one of those characters that from ahead is actually one of the better solo laners, but it's just about getting there, and a lot of times he won't get there. Loki will throw in B, because this is also taking in a rank. If it was SBL, Loki would be down in D. He's just one of those characters that has no place, really. His early game in jungle is too bad. And his solo lane, obviously, if you're building full damage solo laners, then you're probably not doing too great, because you want a frontline, or at least semi-frontline, some form of frontline. But since this is taking in a ranked, I do think he can kind of pub stomp rank pretty easily, especially if you don't play around him correctly. So we're going to throw Loki in B, because he still has a spot in solo and ranked, and also I think he can do decently in jungle when playing ranked. Medusa's up next. Throw Medusa in A. One of those characters I think as a solo laner is very easy to kill, and I don't mind playing against Medusa. However, she does have her strength. The buff to her 1 is really nice. Does a lot of damage. Her ult is still a really good team fight ult. Especially, it can change the team fight easily, especially if you aren't playing around it or aren't recognizing it. So we'll throw Medusa in A. Still, like I said, pretty easy to kill, and that's one of the biggest downfalls of most characters is they have their strengths, but they're just kind of easy to kill, you know. Mercury, I think I might throw Mercury in S-, but I'll probably keep him in A+ for now. Sometimes I just kind of go through it, and I like I'll notice that I don't know if Muzen Cab and Mercury are on the same level. It's more of just where I initially feel like they should be, and I feel like Mercury should either be A+ or S-. So even though he's on the same same level as Achilles or Guan, I do think Mercury's a little bit better. If there was an in-between, I'd probably throw him there, but it's just about explaining it, right? And all a tier list is me putting it somewhere and telling you why I think they're there and what their strengths are. It's not because Mercury's S-, now you have to play him over all these characters, right? It just means he's a good character, right? Anyway, so I'll put Mercury in A+. He just has really good farm, does a lot of damage early on, especially with speed buff. Has a lot, really, really, really good gank potential, especially in duo, ulting up the lane. You can't really ward for it, so he can easily get kills with it. And of course, his late game hyper carry potential is obviously very, very high. Probably Ragnus. Neja is up next. I'm going to put Neja in A. Really good jungler, super good pressure. A lot of good setup with his ult. Problem is you have to hit your ult, and he does get countered by Magi's pretty hard. However, I still think he's A just because his early game is so good, and you can kind of just snowball with, I think, a Neja pick. We'll throw Neith in A-. I think she's on par with some of these other hunters in here, Anhur and Chronos. She has her strength, and her main strength is her global ult. It gives you a lot of kill potential across the map, a lot of pick potential across the map. However, she still has a very, very telegraphed jump or backflip, whatever it is, and yeah, that's her biggest weakness, is that she's just so easy to kill, and her backflip isn't that great. I'm going to throw Nemesis in A+. I think Nemesis is still, even after all these nerfs, one of the best characters at 1v1ing for sure. Very, very hard to punish. Her shield just makes her so hard to punish, and even if you're building her full damage, she feels like it's a bruiser, because she's stealing protections away from people and taking them and keeping them, and stealing physical power away from them and stuff like that. So she's just super hard to punish, and also can still one-shot people and 1v1 anyone on the map and have a pretty easy time. Nike will throw down in B, maybe even A-. We'll keep her in B for now. Just a bad early game, bad clear, because it can get interrupted by a lot of characters. Bad trade potential because she can't really stick to you. Late game isn't that much, like isn't that great that it would warrant the bad early game, like all the other characters we talked about. So yeah, that's basically it. Not really sure what Nike would need for her to be viable, or more viable. But yeah, I feel as though her early game doesn't warrant her bad late game. So Nox will throw an A minus. I think Nox actually has some flex potential as far as mid, solo support. We saw Baskin literally hard carry with her yesterday. If you hit her combos, she is a good character. However, it's just about hitting her combos and whether people are juking them or not. And, whether they're going Magi's and beads and just making it so hard for you to ever get your combo off. Just not that reliable damage, whereas like all these other mages do have reliable damage. Nuwa is probably in the same par as Nox. I think she is a decent character. Obviously, her ult is still really good, especially late game. Just like 500 damage flat across the board on every character, almost, apart from their tanks. But just clicking 4 and getting that much damage in a team fight immediately is just so good and kind of it's just really dumb. Like, all you have to do is click 4 and you get it. However, it's just about getting there because her early game is really bad. She doesn't have a lot of trade potential as far as 1v1 and mid. So her early game is really bad, and you just have to worry about that and trying not to get snowballed on. Odin's up next. I'm going to put Odin in A. He has his situations. Obviously, he's good into characters that can't get out of his cage, for one. But also, he is a very hard to deal with character. He's very hard to kill because if you go full CDR on him and have your shield up very often, then it's gonna be very hard to kill him, for one, and punish him. However, he gets countered by double Phantom really hard. He gets countered by one Phantom really hard, especially if you don't go CDR. He is a flex pick, though. You can play him in jungle, you can play him in solo, you can play him in support, so that's why I'd probably put him in A. And he can still kind of own these characters that can't get out of the cage. And in ranked, I'd probably may even have him in A+, because it's very hard to, I don't know, I wouldn't say communicate, but like synergize with your team. And sometimes you don't go the double Phantom, or you don't know that your guy has Phantom, or you're not next to the person that has Phantom, stuff like that. It's just hard to synergize with your team and work with them to like counter the Odin. So he might be a little bit higher in rank, but I do think he's probably A, and has his situations. Isn't always a great pick, but can be picked and still be a benefit to the team for sure. And also just the fact that if you go full CDR on him and the slow on his 3 is actually really impactful. I think it's a good slow. Osiris just got buffed. I still think that he's probably just around A. Still a lane bully, just like all these other pressure warriors. I think he's a little bit better than Bellona. Still has his strengths as far as being a lane bully, being able to solo pretty easily. If you're going to pick a character and try and solo somebody, it's probably going to be Osiris or Kuang or something like that. These are the main characters that are still going to be able to kill somebody in the 1v1 in soloing. However, he just doesn't bring the late game potential like most of these other characters that you want to play in solo. He just doesn't have the CC like they do. With his buffs, we'll see if he's able to snowball games basically single-handedly. Not too sure if he'll be able to, but he's definitely better than he was before. And I still think he has some matchups like where you want to pick him just for the tether. Like, there's some characters where you're like, if you pick Osiris into that character, they will become kind of useless. Like, for example, I don't know if this is the best example, but say somebody picks Zhonghui. You pick Osiris into that, his ult becomes useless because you just tether every ult, and it does 30% less damage, which is actually a pretty big deal. So stuff like that, like I still think you can use Osiris for and pick the counter matchup. Poseidon, I think is probably an A. He's probably better than the mages down here. Yeah, definitely is. And still can see some picks. Problem with Poseidon is he takes a little bit to get his items online. You want to have your spear online. You want to have your gem of isolation online before you start killing people. So it takes a little bit of time to ramp up with him. In fact, like a few items. And not only that, but he's pretty easy to kill early on. Once he gets his movement speed items from like Shaman's Ring and stuff like that, he's going to be really hard to deal with because you're just never going to catch him. However, he just takes a little bit to get online, so just not that great of an early game basically. Also, his abilities are, apart from his Kraken, they're not that confirmable, right? Apart from like off of CC and stuff. Whereas, like, so he'll have to use his abilities off of his team CC, whereas like a Thoth or a Discordia can make things happen for themselves, if that makes sense. Ra will throw an A+. Great healing. The low CDR on his, or the low cooldown on his ult is kind of OP. You just use that late game. You're just using it at the beginning of a team fight, in the middle of a team fight, and at the end of the team fight. You're getting it off like 3 times sometimes. You're just randomly hitting people for 1,000 damage. It's just super good, and the healing's also really good. Still super safe because of the amount of movement speed he gets from his passive, which is basically always up. Safe clear, super easy build path. Yeah, he's just a really good god, I think, Ra. So we'll put him in A+. Raijin I'll put in A+ as well. I think he's a little bit better than the mages in this category, and obviously better than the mages down here. I think he's a little bit behind Discordia and Ra for sure, and maybe even Agni. But we'll have Raijin in A+. I think he is a pretty simple god, still gets super good pressure early on. His ult is still insane damage, it's ridiculous. And he can single-handedly carry a game, I think, especially in ranked. And especially if you go like a very high early damage build with like Book of Thoth, Tier 2 Book of Thoth, or like Tier 2 Bancrofts and get a red buff, you can one-shot people for sure. Also, he's safe. He has a very good escape that can go over walls, and a lot of mages do not have that capability. Rommel will throw down an A. I think he's a little bit better than the hunters down here because of his ult. That's the main thing, I think. These characters down here could easily contest with Rama apart from his ult. So not only is his ult very safe because you can ult in lane and avoid ganks for a long period of time, but it's also very good for diving the backline. So it's really hard for an ADC to get to their backline because they're going to have to be hitting the tanks in front of them. But if you pick Rama and just ult and help your teammates who are diving the backline, then it's going to be really useful. However, the meta right now isn't exactly a diving the backline meta, so that's why Rama hasn't been seeing as much play, I think. But once characters that come back into the meta where you're diving the backline a whole lot, then you'll see Rama picked more because he can just easily hit them and help secure kills for his dabbers. Oh god, that was cringe. Ratatoskr, we'll throw an A+. The global on this character is insane. Crazy early kill potential with the Acorn once he buys that while he's out in the jungle. Obviously really good gank potential. Really good at 1v1ing, can go a bruiser build and still do crazy amount of damage. Very hard to punish because of low cooldown on his dash. And yeah, he can just be similar to these other characters that can be in 2 places at once. He can almost be in 2 places at once. He can be farming and instantly be ganking, so that's one of his strengths. A lot of these characters want to be farming and can't really gank while they farm, while Ratatoskr is one of those characters that can farm and then easily be ganking. So Robin's up next. I'm going to throw Robin in A-. I don't think he's good in jungle really anymore. Obviously, he's not that great in solo. Just doesn't bring a whole lot. His main form CC, which is his root, is not always confirmable. So he's not that great in solo for that reason. And also, it's not a meta where you want to be diving the backline. And Robin's probably biggest strength is that he dives the backline super hard. So just not that great at that. Scylla's up next. Scylla's one of those characters I think is a little bit underrated. Like, I might even throw Scylla in A. And this is just my personal opinion. If you're good at Scylla, I think you can carry ranked games pretty easily. Her early clear isn't all that bad, really. And her early kill potential isn't that bad either. And her late game is obviously pretty good. To be honest, I don't really know what's wrong with Scylla apart from the fact that like her damage isn't all that confirmable, especially her ult. Like her ult, even though it's a good ability, and if you use it off CC, it's really good. If they just Aegis it and you don't get a reset, then it becomes a really bad ability, and it's you don't always hit multiple people with it. Whereas with other ults like a Thoth ult or as Janus ult, you can easily hit other people with it. However, her root is probably one of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion. The triple root, and it does a million damage. Like, yeah. So anyway, Serket. I'm going to throw Serket in S-. Still, Serket, like always, is one of the best characters in the game. The best gank potential in the game with the blink, pretty much. Can kill any character in the game, can kill tanks very easily, has Prot Shred, has true damage. Her ult can single-handedly win a team fight if it spreads. Just really, really, really good at punishing people for being out of position. Really good pick potential for that reason. And yeah, basically she's just kind of really, really good at punishing people for making mistakes, and people will always make mistakes. So as long as people always make mistakes and are out of position, Serket will be good. Scotty will throw down in F. Just kidding. I think Scotty's probably a little bit better than Izanami, so I won't put her on par with these guys. But she is pretty bad. She doesn't really have the carry potential from dual lane. Her dog is super easy to kill. When it was unable to be killed, obviously she was really good, but now that it's just super easy to kill, there's no reason to really pick her. Her ice is still a really annoying ability, and it's not like you can't do well with Skadi, just like every other character in here. You can do well with these characters, especially if you know how to play them well. It's just, if you're wanting to pick a character based on their strengths, Skadi is definitely not one that you would want to pick. Sobek, I'll probably have an S-. I think he's a good flex pick, and that's why I'm going to have him there. I think he's still good in support, and obviously really good in solo. One of the best late game solo laners, in my opinion. Has so much CC and so much setup for his team, so I'll have him an S-. I do think maybe you could throw him an A+, if we're counting ranked, because in ranked you don't always want to pick the low pressure gods, because Sobek is a low pressure god for sure, but if you know how to play him and can get out of the early game, then definitely S-. But if it was just ranked, we'll probably have him an A+, since his early game isn't that great. So we'll put him there. Just one of the best late game solos for sure, and you can get there pretty easily if you know what you're doing. Sol we'll have in A. Yeah, we'll just have her in A, because she's not really played in AEC anymore. If she was played in AEC and had that flex, then I'd put her in A+, but since she's really only played in mid, then I'll have her in A. She's still one of those mid gods that has a lot of pressure. Doesn't bring any CC though, so that's something to think about. She can make plays on her own, but she doesn't really make CC setup plays on her own. So we'll just have her in A. She just does damage really. Wukong we'll throw down in A-. I think he's decent in solo. Still a good pick if you don't want to ever die, similar to Chaac. Very good at just surviving and being annoying. So we'll leave an A-, but he's not really good at anything, if that makes sense. He's just kind of like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Susano we'll throw in A. I think Susano's a little bit underrated right now. In my opinion, he can single-handedly carry games. The problem is his early game and his early clear potential. His level 1 clear is really, really bad, so he's super slow to rotations and stuff like that. So that's probably one of the reasons he's not that great. Does get countered by Magi's a little bit, and takes a little bit to ramp up. But once you get your items online, you definitely can carry games. But he just doesn't have the early gank potential like some of these other characters. Sylvanas, I'll have an A+. Sylvanas, obviously his only role he'll ever probably be played in is support, unless they change his damage numbers for whatever reason. But yeah, we'll have Sylvanas in A+, because he is really good in support for sure. He doesn't have that flex potential, but since this is also accounting for ranked, if it was just competitive, I'd probably have Sylvanas a little bit higher, and maybe just have him in A+. But since it's accounting for ranked, we'll put Sylvanas in A+. Terra, I think one of the best characters in the game for sure. Her ult can change team fights. Her heal's insane. The heal on her ult is insane. Still has a lot of good CC. Still good in lane. Has kill potential in lane around level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 1's not that great just because, she doesn't really have an ability at level 1, to be fair, as far as like for clearing, like other characters. She can't really make use of her kit when she only has one ability, because you have to combine the abilities together. But still, I think one of the best characters in the game. Maybe even S. We might throw in an S-, but I do think she has a little bit more value than these characters. So yeah, Thanatos we'll throw down an A-. One of these characters I think could be flexed in jungle and solo, but the problem is he just wants to dive backlines, and that's just not the meta. He's still, I think, easily punishable in jungle. Gets countered by anti-heal really easily. I think that's the main thing. The fact that if people build anti-heal against Thanatos, he can't really sustain it. He can't sustain in a team fight, and therefore can't really get his resets and be useful, and kind of like snowball. But he can definitely snowball in ranked, so I would say that you could build him or play him in ranked and still do well. Morgan, I would put an A-, maybe an A. We'll put her in A just because she does have a lot of potential, and she can punish people really easily with her invis stuns. However, this character is always bugged. There's always going to be something wrong with her. I would never pick her personally in a competitive setting because I'm just too afraid. Like I don't want to risk. I don't want to risk me clicking my 4 button and it just doing nothing. That would be very bad in a competitive setting. So I never want to risk that. So that's why I would have her. Thankfully, some of our bugs have been fixed. But if we were just doing it just based on being afraid of picking a character, this character would be all the way down here. Thor, we'll throw in. I'm going to throw Thor in A+. I think he's a little bit underrated. I think he has flex in solo and jungle. Still really, really good late game. Thor is one of the best late game junglers for sure. And also has really good gank potential with his global. Can be at 2 places at once. He can be farming and ganking at the same time, basically. So yeah. So Thoth is up next. I'm going to throw Thoth in S. He's one of these mages that can make plays on his own, can single-handedly carry games, just so much damage, has good CC with his 2 and his low cooldown. Even though they recently nerfed him, the fact that people are kind of instantly throwing their stun for 1, or if they're not, they're building like full CDR on him now, it kind of makes up for it. So that's just one of those characters that's just way too good. One of the best mages for sure. Tyr just got buffed, although I'm just going to put him in A- for sure. I just don't think warriors in general are that useful right now and that great. And since Tyr is a character that wants to dive the back line, and that's not the meta, it's just not that great for him. But also, you know, his main form CC is a single target and isn't that great setup and gets countered by Magi's and stuff like that. Do think the buffs will help him, but I don't think it'll help him to the point where he'll become meta for sure. Ullr, I'll put an A because this also counts for ranked. I think he is one of those flex characters. You could play him in duo, and also you could play him in mid, and he can snowball really easily from the mid lane, especially with red buff and an early transcendence and stuff like that. But, you know, he is, I don't think he's that great in duo lane. Like, I don't think he's that great as an ADC because he can't really single-handedly carry the game. He has to switch stances to actually get his jump off and be safe. Does have a lot of good 1v1 potential, and if you were going to play him, I'd say play him mid so that you can make use of his pressure and try and invade red buffs and stuff. Next up is Vamana. I'm going to probably put Vamana in B. Gets countered, his ult gets countered way too easily by anti-heal. It becomes really useless once they get anti-heal because they can easily kill you in your ult. No real form of setup, obviously, because his only forms of CC are slow on his 3 and knock up on his 1. And you really only use that to set up your own damage, so... Because most solo laners you pick right now are characters that are setting up for your team or at least helping out your team. Vamana doesn't really do that at all, and he can't really do much on his own if they have anti-heals, so that's why he's going to be one of the worst characters, especially in solo. Vulcan, I'm putting A-. I think Vulcan's a little bit underrated. He's still one of those really annoying characters to deal with. If you pick him in ranked and you know how to play him, you can definitely carry a game with him. He's still safe, I think, even though he doesn't really have much escape. Many forms of escape. He has the backfire, which is good. It's good at avoiding abilities. The meatball is really good at messing with people and peeling for themselves or peeling for yourself. And then obviously, if you hit your ult in teamfight, it can change it for sure. But like I said, his CC is not on par, or at least his utility is not on par with the mages up here that can easily win teamfights on their own and easily set up things for themselves. Xbalanque is, I think, an A+. Now, I think Xbalanque is good, and after those buffs, he's definitely better. And his ult's probably one of the best ults in the game, most underrated ults for people who are new to the game. For sure, people think that it's not that great of an ult, but once you get to like Grandmaster's level of play, you realize that this is such a good ult, just making people blind for that period of time. However, I do think after the nerfs, since his buffs, he is not as good as he was, and I don't think you can really first pick or even like second pick. Well, I guess you could second pick X-Ball. You could really even first pick it. It's just like I don't think you should. I don't think it's worth it. I think these picks up here are a little bit better and what you would want more, or at least over X-Ball. Jingtin will throw down in. We'll throw him in A- because I do think he has a spot in solo. He's one of those characters that has good setup and with low CDR or with low cooldowns because of the CDR that you build, he can be really useful, and his ult's still really good in a team fight. However, just doesn't have that great of matchups and does not really bring pressure, so you have to get to that late game. I'd rather just pick Sobek if I was going to pick a character that isn't good in lane, if that makes sense. Or at least it doesn't get pressure. Ymir will throw down an A-. Only reason I have Ymir above like Ares and stuff like that is because he has flex potential. You can play him in support and solo, and his solo isn't actually that bad. He does get pressure there and has a lot of 1v1 potential for sure, a lot of trade potential, and can easily kill people. However, his late game isn't that great, and his main problem, and it'll always be his main problem, is that he's just very easy to target and kill in a team fight, or just pick in the jungle or whatever. Just super easy to kill. And Zeus is up next. I'll throw Zeus in A. I think you're seeing more play for Zeus. I think he's probably on par with these mages, but definitely not as good as these mages, so that's probably why I'll leave him here. And same thing with Zhang. I'll put in A because I think he has some flex potential between mid and solo, and is definitely on par with these mages, but definitely not on par with the mages above them. They do a lot of damage, and that's pretty much all they do, but both these characters. Apart from Zhang Kui with the stun on his 3. But yeah, they just do a lot of damage. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Baron Samedi is the only character that's not here. He just came out, and he's probably SS. He seems very bloated right now and does an incredible amount of damage. But that's only one day of playing, so who really knows? So if he was here, I'd probably have an SS. But this is taking competitive and ranked play into account, and he hasn't seen either of those yet. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. Let me know if you agree, disagree, why not, everything like that in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys watching the video. And yeah, I mean, like I said, this took competitive play into account, but also ranked play, and was just like when I make a tier list, it's not like all these characters are better than these characters, and these characters are better than these characters. It's just like where I value those characters in their own roles, and if you wanted to, like for example, Mercury isn't, I don't think, is on par with like Thor. Like I think Mercury's probably I think Mercury's probably a better pick than Thor right now. Or I do think they're in a very similar aspect of the game where like Thor is very good into a lot of other matchups that Mercury may not be good into. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. Anyway, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. All right, guys.